So we were talking also about this thing in Oslo of exclusive membership thing. Right? That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing like that.
No, I mean, there was, with the conduit, which, as you received a message about yesterday, is no more. But it's interesting to see what will happen in Oslo. But I don't think there is a culture for it in the same way that you have in the UK or in other metropolises. So Norwegians have a little this sort of janteloven aspect sort of carries over in some ways of life. But I do think there's space for it. But like we were talking about, if you pay to be a member, but everybody gets to come in, then what's the point?
Yeah, that doesn't work. On the other hand, the whole idea about having this kind of a membership house is not to have everyone come in. It is something a bit exclusive. It is something for a reserved minority that appreciates and wants to be part of more exclusive clubs. So I don't see it as something wrong. I think there's a demand for that, but yeah, on a general basis, that's what Norway's like, and this is not UK or US or.
Well, because in London you have a club like this on every corner, pretty much.
Yeah.
You
do.
Because of the difference, even just classically, it's more sort of ingrained in the history, where you have a more of a sort of club type establishment, and then you have a public house. And a public house means that it's open for all. So even though it's a little bit sort of old school, still on a bar or a pub or an establishment that welcomes many, it will still be written public house on it. Even though it's sort of unnecessary, in this time and age, people don't really think about that so much. It's either open for all or it's defined as being private. But still, it's a sort of this ye old public house.
You have the Soho House.
Soho House as well, yeah.
That's a membership concept, right?
One of many. Exactly.
One of many.
Where Soho House, it's also expanded, right? It's not only in London, but where Soho House used to be much more exclusive and much more sort of guarded in terms of its members. At a certain point in time, you realize that there is money to be made, more members, or this, so it sort of dilutes a little bit the
exclusivity.
Yeah, to a certain degree, and I think even a lot of what I've heard from people that were members previously is that it's not the same, whereas a number of years ago, it was more just those people that you work with or those people that you know from there and that, and it was more of a tight-knit group. But like anything, as you franchise out a restaurant empire, I'm sure when Subway started, it was more handcrafted sandwiches. But as a concept expands and as it grows, with growth comes, I guess, a little bit of
standardization.
Standardization is one thing, but there sort of dissolves a little bit. The brand identity stays, the same, but I guess the sort of ability to maintain standard in terms of how it was at the start. It's easier when you have one operation, 5 people that work there, 100 guests, boom, super easy to maintain, like exactly what you want. Your
then
vision.
You do that in a different location?
You do that in a different location, you lose a little bit of your ability to maintain what is your original intention.
You make more money.
You make more money, yeah, of course. But the more that you do that, the more, as you said, more sort of standardized it becomes. It loses maybe that personal touch and charm that you find in, and that, I guess that's the difference between your friendly neighborhood restaurant and a big chain. Yeah, maybe you have some people that work at that big chain that you really identify with, and I love to come back because that one waitress, she always, she knows exactly what I want. She gives me a dirty martini the moment I come there, and then makes a stupid joke about something, whatever, or loves it when we come with the family and stuff like that. But at the same time, smaller places usually means that ownership is closer to the operation.
Yeah.
And then there's more of this intrinsic motivation that you want your thing, your creation.
Yeah.
Whether it be, your music, entertainment, sort of start of your empire that's growing, right? The smaller it is, the more that you're connected to it. I mean, case in point, who played last night at Vinland?
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean, and I relate to it as well, because as we also are growing and doing more things in different venues, I can't be everywhere either, and that's a challenge sometimes, because you can't follow through like you would like to, and you have to trust the people and so on. Ideally, I'd like to be on every spot, but then that's not scalable, and so those are the pros and cons. That's why I guess hiring the right teams is important, and the right leaders in every new establishment,
it's
so that person can be like, okay, this is what we're trying to replicate over there, and you do a good job with that, and then you have some key people like that, because without that, it's impossible to.
It's impossible. What I like to. At least for the case of Ambassaden, I like to say that without the people, we're just a fancy interior design catalog, pretty much, Great looking location, but without the people, it means absolutely nothing. It's like you said, you can't be everywhere all the time, even if you want to. I mean, I would love to be able to be present at all hours with everybody, and having the fingers in all the pies.
And for people that are listening, Oskar, you work at Ambassaden. You're in hospitality, and you run the operations team over there.
That's correct.
Yeah, maybe you want to say a little bit about what your role is at Ambassaden, what you're doing there, how long you've been there, and so on.
Yeah, so I'm the operations manager at Ambassaden. So Ambassaden is a larger project than just our restaurant establishments and events and whatnot. So we, as a part of Fredensborg and Heimstaden, we needed a headquarters. And at the same time, it was a very interesting property development prospect. And we also thought that what's the best way to reopen this space? So the space that was previously an American embassy, which was supposed to be open for the people, right? That was the motto. Until about 1978, it was a very popular place to go. You had one of the largest collections of American jazz records, a library that was probably one of the most popular in Oslo, also because it was the only library you could smoke in. And, they had a theater downstairs where a number of people would come to just to watch movies, learn about American culture. It was supposed to be a sort of meeting point between the bridge between the U.S. and Norway. But as security constraints, tightened over the course of the 70s and into the 80s, and then, of course, after, 9/11, which sort of even, to a greater extent, tightened down the security on all embassies around the world, right? So it became more and more closed off. So our intention when we opened up Ambassaden was welcome back. That was supposed to be the motto, right? How do we welcome people back? Well, a good start is food and drink. That's it. That's a great way to bring people, to assemble people together, and we started working around with that idea there. Now I came into the project just as we were opening, and then.
When did you guys open?
We opened in November 2023.
And before that, the few years before that, it was being reconstructed, maybe?
It was being reconstructed.
And before that, it was an embassy?
That's correct.
And was an embassy since 1959?
Yeah.
But you mentioned that the embassy was open for the public also at some point?
Oh, the embassy was always open for the public until about the end of the 70s. So that's why the facilities there was created. The library was well frequented by people.
So it was
you could come in off the street.
So due to security reasons, eventually it got closed and more strictly political an embassy, right?
Yeah. I mean, it got to a point where, they created extra.
This fence and everything, right?
Yeah, the
So
fence.
that was in the 70s. That was just, you know, you could walk in and
Yeah, I mean, you look at photos from when it opened, and it looks more like it looks today. So that was a part of the building project, is that we wanted to bring the building back to where it was in the 50s.
open to the public.
Yeah. Open to the public, and if you think about it this way, the building took 3 years to build in 1959, a present from the Norwegian government to the Americans.
Due to the Marshall Plan? Or?
Yeah, due to their assistance.
During the Second World,
That's
yeah.
correct,
I
yeah.
think I saw that on the presentation, yeah.
So, but think about it this way, is that when we took over the building in 2017, right after we purchased it, it took 6 years to renovate. So twice as long as it took to build it, because we increased the area by almost about 2 times. And this means that, you know, since we opened, I actually did a small calculation on this, and this is only registered visits, not including offices, showings, and whatnot. This is only registered visits in the restaurants and event. We've had over 130,000 people that have visited there.
Since the opening?
Since the opening. So in about, let's say, as I checked this at the last month, so in about a period of 13 months, so 10,000
Again,
people
when
a
did you
month.
open in?
November 2023.
So it's just over a year ago.
It's a baby.
Wow.
It's a baby, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because when I contacted you a year ago, yeah, you guys had just opened up and it was all... When did you start?
I started at the beginning, assisting them with bringing sort of the event division online. I had other responsibilities with a few other businesses that I was involved in. So I couldn't take on the role that I have currently. And as well, there was somebody else that was taking the project from the sort of conception to delivery opening. And then sort of in the stafette pinne, in the relay race, I was handed the baton, and then now it's sort of been my responsibility, with, of course, a great team beside me.
You're responsible for all the restaurants in there?
That's correct, yeah.
So what are the restaurants?
We have a wine bar and cafe, which is more sort of, how should you say, a little bit of a sort of hip, happening, fun wine bar and cafe. It's open from the morning, you know, about 7 in the morning until midnight, every single day, right?
That's Francis.
That's Francis, right? And we recently received a Bib Gourmand. A Bib Gourmand is, if you are sort of familiar with the Michelin sort of differences there, you have the, you know, Michelin stars, you have a green star, and then you also have the Bib Gourmand, which I think is the coolest, because the Bib Gourmand is really good food at a great value, right? You get you get a tasting menu for $6.95, right? And then lunch, you know, you get 3 course for $3.98 or whatever. I mean, it's quite reasonable and cool and fun, and it has a little bit of a sort of, if I was gonna sort of call it something, it would be more sort of the 90s era USA. Right, so each different restaurant represents a sort of different era, and it should feel like that could be a part of an American embassy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, for example, Vinland, which is our other location, it's more of a sort of flagship institution, brasserie, and there it should feel like this could have been in an embassy in the 50s. You know, a little bit sort of bombastic, there's music, there's plates, there's people. It
has a little bit of a New York vibe to it.
Yeah, it's a little bit chaotic, but that's exactly it. We have, you know, the triangle, which is New York, Oslo, Paris, and that's the whole idea around that. Right? It's a wonderful space. I mean, you were there last night, you know.
No, it's a very beautiful restaurant with very nice staff, great food. Really highly recommend everyone to check it out. I'm a vin enthusiast. I collect some wine every now and then, and so I'm always fascinated by the wine collection at Ambassaden, and by the expertise there with Francesco and some of the team members. Exactly. They're really, really good. Tell us a little bit about the wine, right? Because that's an important thing.
I mean, it's I would say that it's almost one of the most important things that we have there. Especially at Vinland, we have a wonderful selection by the glass. You know, over 200 wines by the glass, which is almost unheard of.
That's rare, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just, you know, a breadth of variety of types. It's also, you know, you can get back vintages of very particular Burgundies or, you know, some very cool, you know, producers from California and whatnot. So it's insane. And then, of course, not only that we have 200 wines by the glass, I think it's even more now, but we also have, you know, over 3,500 different wines by the bottle. So that you know, builds on this entire sort of wine program and strategy that we have, which is being spearheaded by Francesco Marsola, who is probably one of Norway's foremost sommeliers. I mean, you have, you know, the more sort of known Merete Bø and this, which are more into this sort of journalistic publicity. They're more in, I would say, the public eye. But for those who are in the know, he has won, you know, many accolades. And awards. He's very, very talented.
I always strike a little wine discussion with him where I'm waiting for you or Albion, and I'm just always so amazed by how much he knows about.
But he can tell you if you just pick you go on a list and you just go like that.
Yesterday I asked him because I have some wine here by a producer called Bibi Graetz, and it's a niche thing, you know, but. And I asked him about the second wine of Bibi Graetz, Testamata. Because I have it. And I was like, how long should I have it? And he was like, at least 5-6 years because it's Sangiovese, What year do you have? And I like, 2019. Oh, yeah, that's the 20-year anniversary. So he's like a chat GPT, you know. He's like,
he's a Rolodex. He can give you the encyclopedic knowledge right away. It's
so really a great experience for everyone who wants to experience good wine at good prices and to be able to not buy the whole bottle and just have a glass.
Just have a glass. And one thing that we're going to start to do now more of is in Francis, you know, the previous concept, the wine bar there, we already have a sort of growing sort of wine culture thing that we're starting to establish there with the Wine Tuesdays and, you know, different producers that come in. So every single week there's at least 1 to 2 different wine events. But down in Vinland, what we're going to start to do there is sort of broadening, I guess, a little bit these wine events that we do to be more sort of wine and this type of food for we want to open up wine for not only people who are at the sort of top level where we do, you know, dinner with Francesco and it costs, you know, 15,000 kroners, which is very cool for those who can afford that, but we also want to be able to you know, introduce wonderful wines to people who don't necessarily have 15,000 kroners to spend. So then we do, you know, easier wine courses. So this is something that's going to be coming now towards the spring. Yeah. So I think that's
cool. And then you have the other, Arrow.
Yes, we have Arrow, which is our rooftop terrace. It's a wonderful space. You know, so there we have more of a cocktail lounge bar, as well as a sort of aspiring fine dine menu created by our chef Charles Taylor there. A wood-fired oven, lots of focus on seafood. Yeah. So there it's really a special thing that they're doing there. You know?
And then there's the event space downstairs, right? Where companies can rent the event space.
Correct. Yeah.
And then do you also have this little space when like at the entrance where you have this big ceiling?
Oh, the atrium, yes.
The atrium is also available to rent, or
the atrium is another one of our spaces. So we use every single part of the house. Right, you come in there. There's the office entrance, which is a wonderful sort of big space when you come in there, about 18 meters or 15 meters to the roof.
Perfect with weddings.
Perfect for weddings. I mean, we even did one the other day. We had this Jarle Bernhoft who was playing there. And then a couple of months after, we had a wedding. So we decided we normally have this small foot that we put for the Christmas tree, and we decided now we'll keep it. Yeah. Because there will be some reason. And then a couple was coming there just to check some things out, and then they realized, wow, this would be perfect. Let's have our ceremony on this. So I mean, it really, and I'm bringing this up just for the viewers to get an understanding of what Ambassaden is and like the role. And we've been working with you guys for some time now with some entertainment concepts, and it goes well with your brand and with what you guys are trying to do as well. It is a very beautiful place and very well situated in Oslo as well. Yeah. Easy to get there, right next to Sommerro. How's that, by the way, with like the Sommerro next to this place? Is that kind of a little competition there, or it's a friendly competition? Yeah. But what I think is great is just that Soleplass. I mean, look back, a couple of years ago, just before Sommerro opened, the selection was okay in Soleplass, but it was more limited. And I know now in the area there's new bars that have popped up, there's new restaurants, there's Sommerro, Ambassaden opened. So it's brought sort of new life into the Sole area, right? So, yeah, on one hand it's competition, but this is classic sort of business, right? You don't put a restaurant in the middle of nowhere because it's, there's no restaurant there. Yeah, that has one benefit. But if you put your restaurant beside another series of restaurants in a busy area, people are going to gravitate towards that area naturally. So there's
people there already, right? So.
Yeah, but it's also bringing traffic to Soleplass because it's becoming more of a destination. Whereas before, maybe it was a place where you had dinner and then you went somewhere else, or you had dinner somewhere else and then you finished your evening there, or you just live in the area and it becomes practical. Yeah. Now I think that there's much more people that are actually coming with a purpose to that area there because they know that they can have a great meal. They know that there is plenty of bars and restaurants and nightclubs and whatever you sort of desire is there in a very confined space.
How did you get into hospitality?
I guess it's a sort of, I fell into it, in a way. And
have you always been in that branch, or?
I was actually a mechanic.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't even know if I told you that before.
No. You started off as a mechanic?
Yeah.
What kind of mechanic?
A bicycle mechanic.
Oh, really?
In Canada.
You fixed bicycles?
Yeah, I fixed bicycles.
All right.
I used to race velodrome bikes. I used to ride BMXs, mountain bikes, road bikes.
You were raised in Vancouver?
Yeah, in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So the first 18 years of my life, I lived in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And on the side, I did do restaurant work because it was why not? Bus tables on the weekends, fix bikes in the afternoon, couple of bikes, make some money. It was a cool, healthy sort of combo. I used to I'd ride bikes like 3 hours a day, every single day. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, sort of restaurants was also something that when I visited Norway during the summers, I would help out. My family owns a couple of restaurants in Sandefjord. So there I would help out. And that sort of brought me even more into restaurant side. And then when I decided to move to Norway, well, restaurant just seemed like a very sort of logical, why not? So besides studies. And I would say that the interests were going sort of this way, right? I was studying economics, management, finance, whatnot. And then on the other side, I had the restaurants and sort of getting more and more into it, and the job roles becoming more complicated, ranging from, kitchen to front of house to management. And then these interests that were sort of diverging sort of ended up converging at a certain point. And, now obviously they're like this, right?
What did you study?
I studied business management.
All right.
At Handelshøyskolen, at BI.
Okay.
So that was also a reason when I was thinking about moving to Norway, it was, well, should I go back to Canada or should I go to Norway? And I figured, why not test it out?
Yeah. Why did you move to Norway from Vancouver?
I guess it was a sort of spur of the moment decision, you know. I feel like if there was a time to do an intercontinental move, well, it's easier now after you finish, you know, high school, that thing, right? It was easy.
You finished high school in Vancouver.
Yeah, I finished high
and
school.
then you moved here to study.
And then boom, and then I moved
right?
here. Yeah, I was
And
18, 19, and then just decided to go.
Both your parents were Norwegian, or how
No,
was it?
my mom's Norwegian and my father is Canadian. So he's still there. Mom's in Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we.
Yeah.
So
And the restaurants you have in Sandefjord are from your mom's side, or?
Yeah. It's my uncle. It's just a
her brother.
Side business. Yeah, her brother.
So they're doing that in Sandefjord.
That's a part of a lot of other things that they do, but
The family business kind of.
yeah, the family business is mostly property, but
Okay.
But restaurants is a sort of byproduct of that. If you have some you know business dedicated properties, then all of a sudden, well, restaurants is something that is very popular. If you have first floors of buildings or whatnot, it's the same as our company or the company that I work for now, which is you know Fredensborg, and the main goal is property. That's the breadwinner. That's what employs all of these thousands of people.
Property development, property, everything.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
You know?
So the restaurant side of it is just a little bit like would be on the side, or like a.
Well, the restaurant side is something that is now a focus. It's something that there's a part of our business which we call Fredensborg Hospitality. There we have Kragerø Resort with a wonderful golf course.
I've been there. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, the manager is called Espen.
Espen, that's correct. Yeah, Espen, great guy. So, but there, great golf course, close to the sea. We have the beach club.
What else is under Fredensborg? So it's Ambassaden, Fredensborg.
Then we have a number of projects up on the mountains. So and a few new ones coming.
Okay.
And
so that's Fredensborg Hospitality.
That's correct. And Ambassaden is I guess was the newest and one of the most important flagships of Fredensborg Hospitality. And it's a really exciting project, you know. And you've been involved in it, and not to mention we didn't go into the events, which is something that you've also been a part of. And there we've had everything from daytime conferences to wine tastings to big club events to banquets. It's a beautiful thing to have a company like this, which is so dynamic as well. Yeah. Because we have a larger corporate structure behind us, but at the same time we're very agile. We're very, if we decide to make a change tomorrow, we'll just do it.
What working in operations, like what are your main responsibilities and like key areas in the business? Like,
well, it's more of a, I guess everything is my responsibility at the end of the day. Obviously, I have a great team of leaders, managers, people that I can rely on and trust in. And I need to make sure that they have the equipment, the tools that they need to do their job, right? So creating this sort of framework around what is Ambassaden, right? What are we trying to achieve here? Each place has their own identity, but obviously falls under the same umbrella of what we're trying to do, There's a sort of red thread that goes through. And I mean, what do I do on a regular basis? Is
like what are your main, like what are the things that you top of mind things that you always like?
Make sure the beer's cold, guests happy, and money's rolling in. No, I think it's top of my mind is always trying to make the operation more efficient. You know, we experience a little bit of sort of these baby little training wheels issues at the start, like any operation, anything that you try to start, you figure out some things, right? We have a great backing and a history, and people with tons of experience, which allowed us to come in, and we had a very good idea of what we were doing. But as you open a place, that place gives you feedback constantly.
And then you need to adjust.
Yeah, so you have a concept, you have a piece of paper that says, we're going to do this, right? And then that needs to be dynamic to some degree, right? You have your idea, your intention, your brand identity.
And then you have to adjust and change.
And then, life happens.
I wrote about that the other day, and I think it's very true. We, I think, sometimes give so much credit to like the idea of something. And it's so rarely that whatever idea you had ends up being that. It's almost always a different variant of that.
It is.
Because you're getting feedback, and you have to change based on the feedback or adapt. And if you do that process again and again and again and again, you'll just end up with a different result. You had this idea, and then 5 years later, it's like, well, it's still food and drinks, but it's completely different than we imagined.
But you become stronger.
You do become stronger, and it's part of the journey. I mean, it's not like there's a blueprint and you just follow that blindly. Things happen, economy changes, people give you feedback, you change, you see different things, it's part of the game. It's part of the whole progress and evolution thing. To keep your mind open and continually build, get measure or get feedback, and then repeat and iterate. And then you do that enough times, and you might end up with a different thing.
I think probably a lot of businesses start with one intention, and then they try again, and then you maybe one little byproduct of what they
you launch something else on the side, and then that's the thing
that becomes your main source of income, or your main focus all of a sudden. And I think that in any business, in yours as well, all of a sudden you realize something, and if you make that change and you're dynamic enough, you can be very successful. But holding yourself to a very steadfast blueprint, and sort of believing in that and not changing, I think that definition of insanity is, right, try again, expecting a different result using the same method, right? So but that's what's very good, I guess, about going back to this what we were talking about before, about the more that you expand something, the more standardized it becomes. And then it's harder to pivot.
Yeah, because you made investments, you made some commitments, you're doing this thing in 3-4 different places. It's all of a sudden, it's not like a little scooter, it's like a big truck with lots of wagons, and it's just difficult to change. I know it's quite. I lived in Spain for many years, and I've always been a big fan of the restaurant, hotel business. We used to do a lot of events in Barcelona, and always had like a lot of admiration for people in hospitality, because it's a very difficult business to be in, and you need a set of qualities to kind of you need a set of qualities and skills to be able to manage that. That, just like you said, with so many people that you're managing on a daily basis, with so many needs and so many requirements, it's really challenging to keep your head right. There's the chefs, there's the waiters, there's the people delivering the products, there's the
cleaners, there's management, there's ownership.
Then there's managing, there's ownership, and you have to be responsible for. Do you have profit and loss responsibility also?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah. So if it's not profitable, then
I mean, if it don't make money, it don't make sense. Put it that way. It's I guess It's hospitality is a special thing, right? Or restaurant industry, hotels, whatnot.
Where did you work before you were?
Before I was working at the Continental. It was one of the restaurants there called En Etage, which I was managing. We also had Ike. It was part of the same group as Fjord. And I had responsibilities as well with a few of our other restaurants, Teatro Terrasse.
Continental Hotel?
At Continental Hotel. We had an En Etage, which was the second floor restaurant.
Oh, so you didn't work for Continental?
No, we had we're actually the only independent restaurant in Hotel Continental. Been there for 15 years. So I took over the
which was called En Etage.
En Etage. Still there.
Yeah, I think I saw. So they have the Theater Café.
Theater Café, and it's just above there.
But it's not Theater Café, it's En Etage it's called.
That's correct, yeah.
It's a different restaurant.
Different restaurant, whole different thing.
You never see it from the street, right? You have to...
You can see it, but it's a little bit more discreet. Oh,
so you worked there?
That was one of the places that I worked, along with many others. So I had responsibilities for a number of them. I was working with a great owner there, Uliane Eikefjord. And... you learn a lot. You get thrown in the deep end there, and you
operations or
again always operations. Yeah, right. But there I would say that I was maybe a little bit more hands-on in terms of the service.
Yeah, you were also more on the service side.
Well, you do the office from 9 until, all right, maybe not 9. You come in for a coffee at 9, and then might start working like about 11 o'clock until 2, doing sort of basic office work, planning, doing menus, printing, ordering, all that sort of back-end stuff. Of course, bookings for the day. And then at about 2 o'clock, set up restaurant, go to the other restaurant, check out what's going on, have a meeting with the people there. Okay, how's the food looking today? Test a new dish. Go back to the other restaurant, make sure everybody has everything they need, do a little briefing. And then maybe bugger off to one of the other restaurants, check out what's going on there. And then that kind of day was regular. You know? It's still regular. I think you need to be a little bit specially involved in it. I think it's a little bit cliche to say, oh, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. But
no, I think it is.
It kind of is.
It kind of is. You're not there from 9 to 5. I mean, you were there today because there was something in the kitchen that you had to fix, and many times I speak to you, and you're there on Saturdays because there's something that you need to fix. And
Sundays,
last time we had an event, I saw you. You were the plumber, or you were fixing the toilets or something. At some point, you're in there, you're fixing the waters or something. Yeah, so you're always.
I mean, you need to wear many hats. I think
But you do a great job, man, and you always wear all those hats with a smile and with a positive attitude, and I think that's what people like about you. You always, you bring a nice vibe to everything, and even if it's burning in the kitchen, you're probably still walking out there with a smile, with the flames in the background.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
It's not that you don't worry, but you have a good. And I think that's important because as a leader, like you are, with so many people, if you don't handle stress right. And you're like panicky and like that, then that's the vibe you transmit to all the other people, and
shit rolls downhill.
Shit rolls down. Yeah. They see you panic, then they panic.
They panic as well, and then that goes further on to the waiters, the people on the floor, everything like that. So
I have only worked in hospitality once, and I was at Pepe's Pizza for 2 months.
Okay.
In Sandvika.
All right.
I was 19. I just moved to Oslo, and for some reason, my dad thought it would be a good match for me. It was horrible. I mean, because I was, I'm not that good with dexterity and hands and carrying all these plates and everything. I remember my manager was telling me that I have to smile when I serve the pizzas, and because but I was stressed because I didn't want to lose the pizzas on the floor.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to you're stressed and you have to handle all these things, and you also have to smile.
Yeah.
And I remember I told my boss, like, look, I cannot smile and be happy and serve the pizza. You have to choose.
You have to choose.
They get a smile and no pizza, or they get a pizza. I was like, I don't think maybe, Johan, this is the right thing for you. I'm like, no, I don't think so either.
Okay.
So that was and it was difficult. And I remember after 8 hours of walking back and forth, my feet were burning. I never felt my feet burning. I'm an athlete. I've played tennis. But it's something else walking around for 8-9 hours.
Oh yeah.
In that tempo.
I used to clock like 15K, 20K in a night. Like
that's a lot of walking.
Yeah.
You feel that in your body at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I also like run in the mornings and stuff like that, right? So then it's like, I mean, and 90% of that day I'm doing in friggin', leather dress shoes, just going for it. Now, obviously, my responsibilities carry over. Sort of, I can't be as present in the evenings and you know, when there's the action as I would like. I'm there as much as I can, but there's only 24 hours in a day. So but geez, before. Monster, restaurant assassin.
What would you say are some of the things you've like learned the last year that was like very, very, because you've been there for a year now.
Yeah.
So you had some ideas coming in, and now a year later, what are some of the things that like, oh, I learned this and this?
Things always
or ideas that were shattered, or just realizations.
Just in general, it's like things always seem very sort of perfect from the outside when you look at them.
I think that's a red thread in life.
Yeah.
They always look perfect.
You look at it and it's wow, it's so perfect, and it's like then I'm not going to be able to do anything to make this even better or whatnot. And then the moment that you come in there, you see like all these different possibilities and all these different things that can be built on. So I guess it's to sum that up is just things can always be better, and it's very fun to have the creative freedom and the opportunity to do that. So,
what motivates you? Is it like getting better? Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a big motivation for me. Is how I can be better for myself, for my team, for everybody around me. I think I have an internal motivation of getting things done. Right? It's for me that sort of. I have completed this task, and I know that I've done it very well, and also that I can help others, complete tasks and do them well. I think this sort of, I don't know, almost sort of this. I can't remember what it's called. The Japanese sort of
Ikigai.
Yeah, focus. This sort of yeah. I think that's without practicing that or even knowing the word, but I really have this sort of focus in life, which is very one-sided sometimes, which can be healthy or unhealthy. But I think that a lot of people, what they would say is, what is life supposed to be like? What's balance, right? If you look at a lot of people that have been incredibly successful in their careers, or who have created things, or written beautiful things, or they've been a little bit. They
right? had an edge to them.
Yeah, they had an edge to them.
And there was something and then, sticking out.
Yeah, and then to create something, to bring something to life takes an incredible amount of effort.
But you also mentioned the balance thing, and I'm not sure anymore about that. I also thought that for a long time it's about being in balance. I still think balance is important, but I look at it a bit different now, the balance thing.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, there is a moment to be off balance. I don't think it's, at least in my experience, it's very difficult to be in balance the whole time. Like, we're trying to build a business now, and it's been a hell of a year, and there's no way I'm in balance now. If I would be in balance, I would be, doing a little bit of everything, and I'm not. I'm doing, it's 90% of I work every day. So I'm not in balance in that sense. I create my balance in a different way. I went swimming this morning, and I find my ways to create mini moments of balances in the day and in the week. but it's not.
And you just got a kid.
And I just got a kid.
You know,
I don't sleep at night almost, and it's so that's the sleep balance, and there's many things. So I'm not sure about the balance anymore. I think there's periods in life where you just have to go full on and take on that.
See what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, balance, I think, it's relative, right? So one person's idea of what is an appropriate balance in life might be different from yours or mine. We all have our idea. Sometimes it's healthy, sometimes it's unhealthy. But I think that the feeling of completing something and knowing that you've put in the work and done a good job in creating whatever it is.
Seeing results is very addictive and challenging and stimulating.
Oh, very, very stimulating. But I think that, I feel like if everybody wanted balance, what's balance then?
Yeah,
am I going to work from 9 o'clock, and then I'm going to go to lunch at 11:30, and then I'm going to 12 o'clock back, and then 3:30 I'm done. Work, and I mean, sorry to say, but I think like if that is your idea of balance, well then you can go work for the government, right?
Yeah, which a lot of people do.
Yeah, yeah. But for people who really want to create something, even if you're on the ownership side, myself, I'm just on the management side. I'm just working with other people's money, right?
Yeah.
But then you have this sort of motivation to build something, to create something for your family, for yourself, for your motivation, for your ego, whatever you want to call it, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's not.
I think it's a great thing to want to create.
Yeah. What's the main difference between living in Vancouver and Oslo? What is it like? And do you miss Vancouver?
Sometimes, in the summer.
In the summer?
The summers are beautiful there, but they're also beautiful here. But rest of the year, it's more like Bergen.
Yeah. It's a big city?
No, I would say big is relative,
Like Oslo?
It's a little bit larger than Oslo. So, Oslo, I think, has 700,000 people in Oslo and Akershus surrounding. And if you'd call like Vancouver, Greater Vancouver, which is the similar, sort of with the suburbs around, you have about 2.8 million, something like that. Oh, it's
a lot bigger.
So... it's got a bit of size to it.
Is there are there a lot of similarities in terms of it's far up north? It's winter 6 months a year.
You're right on the border to the States.
And
Alaska's up there.
Is it further up there?
Alaska's way up there.
How far is it? Pretty far.
Way far.
Okay.
You're like every.
Yeah, Vancouver is right above California, right?
You got California, Washington State, and then you have British Columbia. That's the province. So right up from Seattle.
Right up from Seattle, yes.
Just right up there. So,
okay, so it's not that
no. And everything that happens in Canada, like all the big cities, are pretty much just within 200 kilometers of the border. That's like that sort of like fat right there.
What's it known for? Like what's Vancouver known for?
It's known for. I mean, like historically.
No, like just now, like what's typical to expect when you would go.
Typical to expect in Vancouver is like you'll probably go to downtown. You'll go to Granville Island, which is great sort of fish market, a little bit sort of a la Pike Place in Seattle, but I think very cool. There you have a lot of artists, whatnot, bustling downtown. Wonderful nature, just off. It's a little bit sort of like Central Park, but just in a large area of downtown there's a wonderful park. And then obviously it's like skyscrapers, mountains, and then just forest. Right?
Do you see yourself going back there at some point and living there, or do you see yourself living in Oslo? Or?
Honestly, with this weather, I see myself living in Miami.
Yeah. Are you a bit tired of the weather? Are you a bit?
No, I like the winter, but sometimes
I don't like the winter.
It's the light.
I don't like the winter.
The light does it for me.
Yeah,
it's like I don't mind the cold. Well, to a degree.
I mind the cold too.
You mind the cold too.
I mind but I know what you mean. It's the light and it's the cold. It's both.
The light does a little something to me. I get the, you know, you kind of don't realize it in Norway until the spring.
Because then you get back and then you're like,
back,
and then you realize, where were I?
What the hell was
Everything
I
was
doing?
aching and I was bad. Yeah, I know.
And then all of a sudden, just like it's like a klung, and then like there's like this sort of visor that's just taken off, and it's like, wow, is this what it's like to be in Norway? So,
I agree.
I think that a lot, like that's why it's, you know, good to, if you're gonna try to get away in Norway, try to get away when it's winter. Like winter,
that's the time to get away.
Yeah,
November, December, January, February.
Yeah. Even I
March,
think like
October,
December's nice.
September,
Like,
just get away.
yeah, just get away in general. No, but it's like if I love Oslo in July. July.
Yeah.
Does that be so mid?
No, I love the summer as well. When the summer is here, it's great. But I'm also struggling in the winter.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean I'm used to Spain. And I'm Romanian.
Spain.
And, you know, I'm a Mediterranean, so I miss that a little bit. But it's fine.
Yes.
I mean,
It's a good place for to raise a family, though. You know.
good place to raise a family, and we have other priorities now. I don't even have time to think about the weather now. It's like I really don't. Like
I don't even care. Yeah, it's the same.
I don't even care about the weather.
Yeah.
I don't check the weather until May. Like I only care about the weather in May, April. But like from October until April, it's just it's -5.
You gotta have a
it's cold.
T-shirt. You gotta have the wool thing. You gotta have layers.
What do I care about? I'm still gonna wear my Canada Goose, and I'm gonna wear this sweater. So I don't care if
there you
it's
go. Boom.
-5 or 10 or.
Yeah.
I don't check it.
No.
The parents of Andrea came visiting, and they're from Spain, and they're very weather sensitive, and it's all about the weather and the food and everything. And I'm seeing that contrast as well. And they can speak about the weather for half an hour and explain how yesterday and today. And I'm looking at them like, you guys have a lot of time. Like,
like probably retired, right?
Almost also, but they're Spanish. They speak about the weather and the food. The whole it's like very. You take that away from them, and they're depressed.
Yeah.
Like that's I mean.
But what I love a lot about Spaniards, and you know, my mom lives in Ronda, in Andalusia.
Yeah.
And one thing I've realized about not only Spanish, but a little bit in this sort of more sort of Spain, Italy, France as well. I guess there are places which have this sort of culinary traditions. But what I love there is that while you're eating lunch, right, then you're talking about what you're going to have for dinner, right?
Yeah. No, it's different. It's a different culture. I miss a little bit of that in Norway. I miss a little bit of that, that warmth and the personality of the people from the south. I find that a little bit challenging in Norway to navigate. I mean, you get used to it eventually. But I miss a little bit that warmth. And it's definitely a correlation between the weather and the light and everything. You see Norwegians also in the winter. They're a bit more reserved. They're a bit more inside their own.
It's a little bit more like, is this kind of in their zone.
Yeah.
And well, you meet them in like at the Hitta in the mountains.
Oh, it's all good.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, yeah,
I mean,
what's going
it's
on?
always funny when you meet Norwegians abroad.
Yeah.
They're booming. They have time to speak. You meet them here, and it's like...
Yeah, it's a little bit more...
It's a bit like,
I gotta do something. I'm going. I got a doctor's, I gotta work,
Yeah.
But then again, back to this sort of... When the spring comes, when the summer comes and things sort of lighten up. I mean, in the summer, you meet people walking around. They have time all of a sudden. It's like... I feel like that's where, like, a majority of the work gets done. Like... January 2nd until 17th of May. And then after that, it's kind of like not really a lot of stuff going on most of the summer. And then back right at the end of the year, like September until November. Maybe a little bit of December as well. That's when work gets done. Otherwise, around there, it's kind of...
Speaking about work, what do you think of like the work ethic here in Norway? How is that? How do you find it?
It's different. It's different than what I'm used to.
In Canada?
Well, in Canada, I'd say that
You didn't have a lot of work.
I did. Yeah, I didn't have like a lot of work experience, but maybe had a slightly strange, workplace. It was I would call it more of a pirate ship than a business, with all these different eclectic people and very special place to have a first job. I'd say, which carried through, but. I remember it was, you take a sick day or you just don't show up for work, and then,
In Vancouver.
pretty much you weren't paid,
In Vancouver.
Yeah, in
Canada.
Vancouver, yeah, or at least
That's not here.
Yeah, but I mean that's not here at all. But I mean obviously you have sick days and whatnot like that. But
I read that Norway is among the countries that has the highest sick days per person or something.
I wouldn't doubt that at all. It's very. I'd say that with Norwegians there are some which have a very, very good work ethic. Maybe have a little bit more of an old school kind of this sort of education.
Yeah.
They blue collar, hardworking, kind of we built this country, sort of almost semi patriotic. I think there's a few of those, but more and more I'm realizing I don't even think this is Norway. I just think that it's like a younger generation coming in, and I'm not that old either, but I just feel like I see it as like there's a sort of change in mentality here, and I'm not sure if it's from Norway, but I think it's also more of a generational thing. Is that I see that the work ethic is becoming less and less, dramatically so. Right?
I think the work ethic is terrible, honestly. I think it's terrible. I mean, of course, there are always variations, and it's individual variations, and some people are really high achievers, and you have the whole spectrum. But as a whole, I think the work ethic is really lousy.
I agree.
I just think so. And we always tend to, let's take US as an example, and so many people have so many bad things to say about the US always, I find. It's like, oh, they're crazy over there, and there's shootings, and there's Trump, and I always say the same thing. Yeah, no country is perfect, but look, it is one of the most innovative countries in the world. People work very hard there. People pick up the phone. They're sharp. They're business oriented. They are focused. It's the wheels are spinning.
Oh yeah.
In those people.
Oh.
In the U.S. I've studied in the U.S. I have friends in the U.S. I keep in touch, and I see that. Yeah. And here, it feels just like the wheels are not spinning. It's very slow.
A lot of people, you call them after 5 o'clock, and it's like, no, sorry, I can't.
Yeah, and
even like salespeople, who are even like measured on their sales, they'll like turn off their work phone.
It is very,
which is totally different.
No, it's very. I think it's very bad. I don't know the reason. I don't know why, but I agree. There's something about this new generation. But I also think it's something inherent in the system. Like you mentioned, Janteloven and this culture and everything. I think there's something in the system. I remember when we have a little bit of the same background because I'm raised in Romania. You're raised in Vancouver. Well, different countries, but like, and moved to Norway a bit later. And I remember I was in Norway. I was a year when I was 10, and I already had been to school in Romania for 3-4 years. And we were very advanced in terms of like realfag, like mathematics, physics, and all these things. I mean, by age 10, we were pretty far out there with the math and everything. Yeah. And I remember moving to Norway, and we were still doing like the multiplication table here, and very simple, like 2 times 3 and 3 times 1, and these things. And we were like doing second grade equations and things like that, and a little bit of geometry and and I was 10, and I remember we just got this mathematics test, and I finished it in like a couple of minutes because that was easy for me because we'd done this a few years ago. Yeah. And I just remember I raised my hand, I was done, and then the teacher called my parents in and asked if it would be okay to tell me to, when I'm finished with my test, to just lay a bit low and not raise my hand or anything because the other kids are feeling a bit the pressure. Yeah. And I remember my mom telling me that. And I remember and I still think that's just weird.
But that's like also stunting your growth, right? And it's like kind of putting a cap on you and saying like,
yeah. But I didn't like that. And unfortunately, I think there's a little bit something Norwegian to that in some way. Maybe that's jantelov, and maybe it's to make sure that everyone else is like kind of okay and everything.
Yeah, but I think that's also a little bit more of this sort of, we got to all make sure that everybody's included and
all of this. And this was this is 2003, yeah? I don't know how it's now, but...
probably worse.
Yeah, and then you mix this with the new generation, and I don't know, it's just a big thing. But I come from a country and a system where it's all about competition. It's all about, Bucharest used to be called Little Paris before. We are very influenced by French people, meritocracy. I'm not saying this is good, but I'm just saying this is what it is.
Yeah.
Very driven by competition, very driven by being the best, very driven by. This is the culture I come from, where you are encouraged to be the best. You are encouraged to work to be the best, to get a prize if you're the best, and it's not like if you're not the best, you're excluded or thrown away. It's no problem, people think it's a problem if you're the last one in class. It's not a problem. Yeah. There are many people who are last. It's just that
you don't get the first.
You don't get the first prize, and
that's okay.
And you know what? They were okay with that too.
Yeah,
like it's not a big thing.
It motivated them to become better.
Or maybe not, but it was.
Maybe not,
but it was not a problem. People seem to have this impression that if we do that, it's excluding the other people. But it's not excluding. It's because you're not pushing them out or like it's just the focus and the prize is on the people that want to move upwards. I've never seen any issue with that.
Yeah, but that's I.
And with all due respect for the people that don't get, like I was very good in some classes and very bad in other classes, and in the classes I was bad, I was bad.
You got a bad grade.
I got a bad grade. Yeah. And the teacher was like, you're really bad, you suck, and I was like,
okay,
It
thanks.
was not an issue, but nowadays it's an issue.
Yeah, but nowadays it's there's a difference.
They're not even giving grades anymore. I hear.
It's
like, what's that?
Like smiley or middle smiley or
very strange, very strange.
But one thing that I think is very important in like that sort of more broad talking about outcomes, and I think I'm a believer that in a country, in a system, that we have equal possibilities or equal opportunities, but not equal outcomes, right? Is that equal outcome means that everybody can get this. Equal possibilities is everybody has the same...
Equal outcome is, I don't care what the level of effort you put, in the end, you're getting this.
You're getting this, which is wrong, because then it doesn't promote entrepreneurship. It doesn't promote creation.
There's no reason to stand up and do anything. Why would you?
We might as well just lay back there.
And I think that's a little bit the problem that Norway is a little bit heading into. I mean, with the innovation and the smart people leaving some of the country and everything. I mean, we don't have to go into the politics side, but it's there, and it's I've played tennis my whole life. I come from this culture. I'm used to competition. I think competition is healthy.
Yeah.
I also think competition is very. It's not. It doesn't exclude, or contrary to the idea of people that don't want to compete or that don't want to become the best. That's fine too. It's room for everyone.
It's room for everyone.
But the people that want to get better, the people that want to work harder, should
I just think
have
that
a prize there.
They should have a possibility to do it, and that's where I like a little bit where I'm working, because they see that they maybe have a little bit of this non-Norwegian mentality. You yourself, you create your own workplace, so you can, if you want to work like that, you can, and but it's very sort of like it's very based on what you do. You are what you do. Yeah. You can talk all you want, but what you do is what you get, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it might be a little bit difficult for you, I guess, if you're trying to grow your business, but people aren't as quick.
Yes,
quick on it.
that's
It's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. Boom, tomorrow.
that's for me the most annoying thing, because I have tempo and I want to be quick, and not everyone is that. And
you're constantly hamstered. I mean, I've been slow when you've called me. You called me like twice, and then I said, "Sorry, we'll circle back."
We'll circle back and all this. It's okay, you know.
But you know, it's. I think just in general, that is like a rule of thumb. Things take longer.
Things takes longer and they cost more, and it's harder. It's just get used to it.
Yeah.
You know, I follow a lot this guy Alex Hormozy. I learned a lot from him the last year. He talks a lot about marketing and work ethic and like these kind of things. And I agree when he says that things take longer, they're harder. But most of the time, it's also the coach of Rafael Nadal said this, and I think it's really it shows the point. He says many tennis players are very frustrated. I think this is, by the way, applicable to anything, not just tennis. Just when you're trying to get better, or trying to build a business, or trying to. He said many people are frustrated in tennis but the problem is frustration comes that you are over-evaluating yourself. You think you're amazing, and you hit a ball or you do something, and it's not, and you get so frustrated. You shouldn't be frustrated. You're not good enough. So it was you're just not good enough yet.
Yeah,
You're frustrated because you think you're good enough. If you accept it, I'm not good enough, I just have to work a lot harder, and it takes a lot. You have to kind of like reset your expectations level. You just have to work a lot harder for a lot longer time. And then you wouldn't be frustrated, because it's like, it's going to take 10 years, to get really good. But most people are like, 10 years? Like, what do you mean 10 years? Like,
well, 10 years of people...
But it takes...
But that's the thing, is that...
It takes time to do anything. I play the horn for 10 years, almost for 10 years now. Yeah. And I thought I was going to play in 2 years. And it's like, no.
And you're still learning every single day?
I'm still learning every single day. And compared to the people that really rock it on the sax, I'm still... So, again, it takes a long time for anything to get done. And we just need to reset our expectations. And because we live in this fast-paced society where everything has to happen now, because you just open your phone and you should get quick dopamine at every single point. You're used to it, right? You're like a junkie. Oh, some dopamine here, some dopamine there. And then you go into the real life and there's no quick dopamine. Because it doesn't work like that.
What's going on? Where's the screen?
Where can I?
Where's my phone?
Yeah. And you get frustrated, and it's like, well, what do you expect?
I think it's a very easy thing. It's almost like that becomes people's safe space. Is this sort of quick dopamine, and then the moment that they're,
I'm a father now.
Yeah. And what are you gonna show your kid? You're gonna just put a laptop or a iPad in front of them so they can, here, watch this,
You mean what?
I think that, a lot of parents, they say, okay, here's an iPad, put it right up to the kid's face from when they're, half a year old, and watch this, and then they become...
We haven't discussed about this, but I think my initial stand on these things is that I want to keep this technology away from him for as long as possible. I don't think it's healthy for a kid under 12, 13, 14 to be exposed to the internet.
You also don't want to isolate them.
You don't want to isolate them because they're
going to find it anyways. And then I was actually talking with a friend about this yesterday, is that if you keep it away from somebody, like a kid or, but if you keep something away from somebody, they're going to want it even more. So they're going to always find a way to do it. It's like prohibition. They found a way to drink booze.
It's not like prohibition. I think it's more about keeping him busy with other things and tempting him with other more just competing with these things, putting him at sports or in front of music or something, and competing with that technology. Not prohibiting him, because I know he's gonna get it. But it's more like, come on, let's go play tennis. Let's go outside. Let's I
feel that
these things.
Yeah.
Because if parents are lazy as well, and you're not doing anything, and you're on your phone, you're going to tell the kid, "Don't be on your phone."
Don't be on your phone
when you are scrolling. That doesn't
exactly,
work.
no.
Or don't smoke and you smoke. Or kids are going to follow you. So if you're busy, you're active, you're working, you're at tennis, you're not.
Well, they're inspired by you.
They're inspired by you. They're going to be like daddy and mommy.
It's the same as employees, same as
Yeah, if you're on your phone the whole day and you tell them, "Hey, go work,"
make sure we put that there, and then you're there, and like
it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. I mean, we're animals of habit, and it's a little bit monkey see, monkey do. You know, we see something being done, then we're going to recreate that. And then if we see it, it becomes accepted.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And you know what else is fascinating is that you have graced us with the presence of a wonderful brandy.
Yeah, this is a nice one. It's so smooth.
If you mind.
I don't mind. I told Jorge, my father-in-law, like bring a ball of this one.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's really nice.
Cheers.
Cheers. Not even sure we can show this on camera, but we can drink it. We're not in California. This is not Joe Rogan.
This is not Joe Rogan.
We do the whole.
Oh.
No, it's funny. But
why did you start this podcast?
That's a good question. I wanted to have my own podcast 8 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was in Spain. I really wanted, and I actually had some guests over, and we did a little sample and everything, but for some reason I wasn't focused enough. I wasn't dedicated enough, and I had many other things I was doing at the same time, and it just was one of these things that I should have done. I have many things I should have done. I'm so glad I picked up the saxophone, and it didn't just become one of these things I didn't do. But I think we all have in our lives things that we think about we want to do, and they just fall away. And then for some reasons, some few things that you do end up doing, and it's like so satisfying. I always wanted to have my podcast. I remember I mentioned this last time, so I won't do this thing. I imagine I will get asked on every podcast why I started my podcast, and I don't want to go into that. But the short story is I'm really inspired by Joe Rogan. It was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to 10 years ago when no one was listening to podcasts, and I was sending this to all my friends because I thought it was interesting, and people were like laughing and like, "What are you sending me two guys talking?" And I was like, I don't know, I find it really interesting and the topics and everything. So I and then Jordan Peterson came along, and then some of these guys, and this is a long time ago. Like they weren't even popular at all. So I thought, wow, this is interesting that people can have a discussion and in a very constrained environment where you just focus on the discussion. There's no phone, and you just talk for 2 hours or whatever. You never get to do that.
Very, very, very rarely.
You never get to do that.
I mean,
you're always on your phone. You're always on this.
Yeah, well, there's some distraction or whatnot.
But for an hour and a half or 2 hours to just get a conversation and just play with your thoughts, I think it's very rare. It's like therapeutic.
It's almost healthy. I think that like when you go through your journey now with this podcast, is that you pick up things, you learn things, you maybe even listen to the podcast again, reflect on things that you've said. It's like this is Johan's journey in meeting people with the business,
there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I see as advantages or reasons for doing this, and then there's many things that probably will come out of this that I didn't see, like everything. Right?
Back to the
idea.
You make your business like this, the blueprint, and then
it goes, I didn't see this exactly. Yeah. So I'm open to that. But let's put it like this: the obvious reasons are I want to meet interesting people. Yeah. Because I'm curious and I like to ask questions and I like to learn and I like to get better. So I like to get them and talk to them in this kind of environment. I want to save it for the future because these are discussions I want to go back to. So I want to kind of save it in a format that is allowed to save and share it with some friends. Maybe have an interesting discussion with you. And 3 months from now, I'm speaking to someone who wants to get into hospitality or just move to Norway and Oslo and whatever. And I'm like, oh, check out this podcast with Oskar. Because this is exactly what we talked there about.
Yeah.
So this...
How it is coming to a new country.
Oh, he was from Vancouver, whatever, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're from, Romania, Vancouver, or Spain, whatever.
And then the third reason is to link it in some way also with what we're doing with entertainment. Maybe use it as a platform to get to people that we otherwise wouldn't get to. Create interesting links to entertainment and with what we deliver.
It's a great channel. You have creative expression. You meet interesting people. It's a great.
And it's also very me. Like I do this without the video anyway.
We've done this.
We've done this.
We started with half an hour of this before this.
Yes. So I would do this without the camera anyways.
Well, we did. Yeah,
we kind of did it.
We kind of did. And the other day when we met up, speaking about the conduit, which was the sort of spur or the start of our discussion today. But last time we were there, even just discussing things like this. And then you met my mom, and then Carl Christ was there, and wonderful clarinetist.
And there's another reason as well that I came up. This is a reason that I didn't have in mind, but that I'm seeing as more obvious now that I'm doing this. And it's that I want to get better at speaking, and I want to get better at listening. And this is also, by doing this, you also get better at that.
It's a muscle.
Because you need to learn how to speak. And then you listen to yourself and you go, wow, I speak like this, or I don't let the other guy finish his sentences, or I do these things with my face, or you learn a lot of things about how to communicate. So I watch it now and I'm like, wow, do I do that with my face? Do I interrupt like that? Do I ask these questions? That's a silly question. Or, all these things. And then you go, and I probably do this in real life as well. And I'm asking and I'm answering. And I'm like, yeah. And it's like,
there's no difference. There's no real difference between this and when you're out on the street.
No.
The only thing is that those interactions are more limited, faster, quicker. It's more, it's the kind of that 15-second, boom. Okay, cool. Yeah. See ya, right?
So this is a way to potentially also get better at that.
I think it's a very good idea.
And I want to do it in different languages. Because I speak, French. You speak French. I want to do it in French. I want to do it in Spanish, in German, in Romanian.
In German as well? I didn't know you spoke German.
Yeah. So I was thinking there's that could be one way of differentiating myself a little, because there's not many that do podcasts in 5, 6 different languages.
Like that they actually speak, because there's some now that do a dubbing. You can do a dubbing. So for example, one person that has like a YouTube channel, they'll make their videos in English, and then you just run it through like an AI software, and it will just dub everything.
I think eventually I want to have this thing so people can read in Norwegian and listen in English, or I think this is easy to do. But I just to have conversations in different languages, I find fascinating. Why not?
Well, you work their brain in a completely different way.
Yeah.
I think there's something about people that can speak multiple languages, which... do you feel like you have different personalities when you speak different languages? Right?
I feel like I'm going into a different rabbit hole, and it's you go into a different role. It's a bit like theater. I mean, when you go and speak French, for example, you become this Frenchman, you talk a bit like French, your lips go a little bit like this, and you talk like this, like, oh.
Yeah, so, okay.
But that's how the French are. They have every country has
mannerisms.
Let's say a collective symbolism, right? It's a reservoir of collective symbols, expressions, facial expression. There are facial expressions that are connected to countries.
Very much so.
Some countries share those things, and there's different. But there are, like when I say Russian, you think of a Russian expression. There is something. There is a Russian expression. There's a Romanian facial expression. There's a Italian. There. Yeah, but this is ingrained in the subconscious, in the let's say the collective
It's a collective sort of brain,
hierarchy.
Brain and heritage. Yeah.
Heritage.
Yeah.
So
a lot of these things, by the way, is if you're learning a language, if you learn it before the age of about 12 years old, I think it's something like that, is that if you start to speak it, you start to be around that language prior to that age, is that you learn some of these mannerisms, sort of idiosyncrasies in the language.
They get embodied in you.
It in a totally different way,
Yeah.
which is really positive, because I was exposed to, for example, myself, English, Norwegian, and French from a very young age.
Yeah.
You know, when I was 6 years old, I was being introduced to.
You got the French from Vancouver.
Yeah, I got the French from French immersion, right? And that started very, very early. So just all three going like this together. Obviously, English is just that's.
I had French in school for 7. You know, the thing with me with languages is very weird.
Yeah.
Because people always say I'm a talented guy with languages, and maybe I am, but it was something I discovered very, very late. Very late. I was not interested in languages at all until I moved to Norway.
But you took them in school.
Yes, but until 15, 16, I was not interested at all. I learned Norwegian because we moved here when I was 4.
Yeah.
And I stayed for a couple of years, and then I picked it up. But I picked it up at 4, right? Because I went to the kindergarten.
Yeah.
And in half a year, I spoke Norwegian. And I spoke English, and I spoke Romanian. That's it. And then I had French in school for 7 years. But I never cared about French. And for some reason, my mom, when she visited me in Romania, one of the few things she cared about was like, how am I doing in French, for some reason. And because it was important for her that I speak French. I don't know why.
Little Paris
or whatever. And I could never. I still remember she would ask me to conjugate être and avoir, and I was like always confusing them. Like,
do you have the green book, the Becherel?
I don't know, but it was.
I remember that was like a Bible. Just to read through this.
And then I moved back to Norway when I was 15, and I had to choose between German and French in school. So I chose French because at least I'd heard it for 7 years. It was there, not because I liked it.
No.
And then I had a Norwegian teacher who was married to a French woman, and he was kind of very French in his personality because he was married with this French woman. He was from Bergen also, so he was different and direct. Bergen people are very direct. And so I remember at the first test, he wrote very sarcastic commentaries in the margin and kind of like mocking me, really, like, I thought Romanian and French was very similar. Oh, this, that, and just mocking my level of French, which was very weird. And I got offended. I was like, and I got a 2- or something. So my goal became just to show him that I can get the best note in that class. But in the process, I started loving French and really, really becoming interested in French, like really loving French. And then he encouraged me to go take Spanish, because I learned French in a year and a half. I got to a very good level in a year and a half. Yes, just by myself, reading books and interested in learning.
But talking with people.
Talking and then
I think that's
going
very, very important.
Going to France, living with this famille d'accueil, like the family of the.
Yeah.
And I was also, the thing with me is that when I'm very interested, I'm like a sponge.
You go all in.
I'm all in, autistically all in. Like I would think in French, talk in the sauna with myself in bad French. I would have 3 books in French I would read and not understand anything. Like this is crazy obsessive. Like just read and not understand.
Just reading the words and
just reading and starting thinking what they mean and putting myself and visualizing myself and slowly and surely getting and just being obsessed with. I was reading books eventually, just looking for the words I don't understand. Like this I understand, this I know, this I know, this I know, this I know, this I know. And I was not even getting the message because I was like looking for what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Oh, this I don't know.
Okay, and then
and then I was like, and these are the times pre-ChatGPT, Google Translate stuff where you
had to use the Oxford English French dictionary or Norwegian French.
Can you imagine?
I still got one. I have 2 English Norwegian dictionaries.
So that's how I learned it, and then I went to France more and more, and I got in that, and then everything is, and then I learned Spanish because I applied the same to Spanish and then German, and then I discovered like I have a thing for languages because I also picked up the saxophones. I have a musical ear, so I have something there for language and interest and everything. And I'm sure I could have learned now 5 or 6 more languages because I know how to learn languages now, and I also love it. But it came very late.
But there's something to be said about like, if you already have the basis of French Spanish, then Italian will come easier than if you just didn't know either of those two languages, right? The sort of Latin roots, the formulation of words is quite similar. The only thing that I've sort of realized in learning Spanish, because my stepfather, he's from Mexico. He lives with her with my mom in Spain. Right, so I've always had Spanish, sort of Mexican Spanish, but Spanish as well, growing up, and what I find is that as I started to learn Spanish, is that I started mixing words in from French, and then Spanishifying them.
That's fine. Which, that's fine.
Most of it.
It's so fine.
And even sometimes you're right. You're actually
It's so fine. It's okay. Like people are so confused. Oh, I mix. Go ahead, mix them. Who cares?
I think that is probably the greatest compliment you can make to a culture is learning their language.
Yeah.
To learn to communicate with them, right?
Yeah.
It's like I grew up. Most of my childhood, all of my friends were most of them were Yugoslavian, right? So learning some Croatian, some Serbian, Bosnian, learning the differences between those as well. That's a little bit more finessed, but at least like being around them and then being able to pick up words and phrases and sayings and things like that, and then not using them for 10 years, and then all of a sudden here in Oslo you meet a Croatian, and then you say something to them, and then they're like, "Oh my God," I think it's the highest compliment you can give in some way to a person of a nation is speaking with them in their language.
And it's also good for your brain to learn languages, new words, new way of saying things. I look at it as like, I don't even look at it as like languages anymore. I look at it as like there are many ways of saying things. There are many ways of saying things. And languages are just, the more languages you know, the more ways of saying things you know. It's synonyms. It's just, it's food, essen, nourriture, mancare, mangiare. It's all just synonyms. It's the same thing. It's just more ways of saying it.
Yeah.
It's so that makes it a little bit easier to because we like to compartmentalize these things.
Very much.
And one of the questions I always get is like, how many languages do you speak? I hate that question. How
many
languages?
I don't know. It's like
6, 7. Is it 9?
Is it? I need to know the number today.
Yeah, it's like a number. Like,
but it's very fluid because I think that most of them are. It was like, okay, call 100% understanding of a language. Like, that's 100%. Well, like, nobody is there.
What do you mean with how well? Right?
Yeah. How well can you communicate in a language?
Yes.
And that let's say that 100% understanding would be like that's.
For me, the highest level of understanding, honestly, is the highest possible for me is when you get stand-up comedy in that language.
Oh.
If you get stand-up comedy, you're at 100%.
Then
how many languages do you speak? Well, I don't speak even. Then I'm back to one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's difficult.
That's very hard because also then you need to not only know
the words.
You need to know the reason, the roots behind words, but you also need to know culture.
Very difficult.
Yeah, because you need to be culturally relevant and be able to give examples of things.
Yes.
It's like if I listen to comedy in English, it means a lot more to me than if I listen to it in Norwegian.
Yeah.
There's some funny. I've heard some funny stuff. And been to Latter and heard some some really funny people, but it doesn't hit as hard that if there's cultural examples from my childhood of like this pop culture icon compared to this, and like if I watch Dave Chappelle, I'll laugh any day of the week. But if I watch one of these Norwegian comedians, there might be some things that I laugh at, but other things, it doesn't hit me deeper down in the soul.
Are you a lot into comedy? You watch?
I watch.
You like stand-up?
I like stand-up.
Who are your favorite ones?
I mean, I was almost gonna rattle off a list of like only black guys, but I mean, I love Dave Chappelle.
I love Dave Chappelle too.
Like that is gold. He's like at my like tops. I also watched like a lot of Richard Pryor, actually.
Richard Pryor, I love him.
That's
I
like
love him. That's old school.
That's
Really old school.
That's really
But
old
he's
school.
He's so good.
Yeah.
The one with the red dress.
Oh my God.
The one with the red dress, right?
Yeah.
When he tells the stories with the mafia,
Dude.
the mafia stories.
I've
You know that one when he goes in with the gun, right? With the gun, and there's a stick up, and then the mafia goes, do the gun again.
Yeah, do the gun. Do the gun again. Do the gun. I mean, you gotta be like slightly psychopathic to do some shit like that. Yeah,
that's really, really good, but it's also scary good in a sense that you have to be like very, very spaced out, very creative to a point where it's maybe not good for yourself.
No. I think do you think a lot of these comedians are fucking major depressive, alcoholic, drug abusers? Like, I mean,
Do the gun again.
Do the gun again. Jesus. Oh no, man. There's
Eddie Murphy.
Oh, Eddie Murphy, fantastic.
Raw, delirious, absolutely amazing.
He's
absolutely amazing.
Something else.
Not 2025 friendly material. You know, some of these guys are in terms of the messages and the jokes. Because of the era we live in now,
yeah,
it's
but
like
that's the thing is like, you know, some people say, oh yeah, I feel hit, I feel targeted, or I feel you know that's disrespectful. I think a lot of these guys are who said this again? It was a equal opportunist. You know, they'll attack anybody. Doesn't matter if you're black, white.
Do you think we've become more sensible? Like, are we a little bit more sensible now as people in general? Is that what this is about? Like,
more sensitive?
Sensitive.
Yeah.
Sensitive and
I think we are, but it's turning. I feel like as a society, as a sort of world society, is gravitating a little bit away from this little wokeness, this period that we've kind of been through over the course of the last years, especially the last sort of decade, where it just sort of slid into a little bit wokeness, the final stage of wokeness, you know? Back to what we were talking about equality of you know, that you have equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome. And now that it's sort of equality of outcome is being sort of pushed in a lot of ways. Right?
You know, I understand that a lot of these things have to do with regulating and facilitating for people with less abilities or whatever to adjust. And I understand that side of the spectrum as well. But I also think that taken to an extreme, like in some cases it has been done, it leads to this wokeism or extreme protection, where everyone is like very protected and you can't say anything, and censorship and everything. Like again, I come from a culture where we said outrageous things to each other outside as kids, we built a little bit of robustness around that, and it was okay, and nobody was, you know,
if somebody told you something, like if somebody said something that you didn't agree with, I'm like, okay, well, yeah. Screw you. I don't, you know, I think that having an opinion means having that has the possibility to offend somebody. Any idea has the possibility to offend somebody, but does that mean that you need to limit your ideas? Because if you offend, you know, there's a very fine line between, you know, controlling of speech, you know, and thought, and this is back to, you know, you mentioned Jordan Peterson earlier, obviously, big fan, Canadian professor.
Yeah, I mean, I follow him a lot as well. And one of the things he said many years ago when he was attacked by one of these journalists that asked him about why should because he had this thing going with the transgender community, right?
Yeah.
And the thing, I think he's misunderstood as well, because I don't think he has anything against transgenders at all, honestly. And I don't think at all. It's just about that he doesn't want to be imposed how to speak. It's about the freedom of speech. It's not about respecting transgender. It's about you can't tell me by law that I have to say Z or D or B. That's the thing. I would probably say it if you ask me nicely. It's not even about that.
No. It's just like government mandated that says...
Mr. Peterson, I would like you to whatever. I think he would say, okay, whatever.
No problem.
Sure, you ask me, it's fine.
It's a regular...
But if it's a law that I have to... That's the thing. It's the regulation of that.
Because that's the start of...
Because where does this end?
Vicious...
Where does this end then?
Where does it end, right?
Right.
Because if at first you're not allowed to say this, then you're not allowed to say that.
Exactly.
Then you're not allowed to say...
And I like when it was one reporter who was asking me, why should your need for speaking... What do you say? What's your need for...
Why should your right not to be offended reach over my right to have an opinion or something like that? It's like...
Something like that. And then he said, which was very nice, he said, in order to speak your mind, you have to risk being offensive. Like, if I want to explore the limits of my thinking, some stupid things are going to come out. That's the way of putting it, right? And I might risk offending you, but I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just the way a conversation goes. And that's also, I think, the thing with this is we have to understand that sometimes we will get offended, and we just have to live with it. And it's a difference between someone hitting you directly and offending you like in a very direct way. Yes, like you are an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Going right out at you.
Or talking about, I think wokeism has gone too far, and you're offended by that, or saying that,
So, but I think that a lot of people are more offended. It's like a second degree offense. Is that they are more offended for others. It's
the fathers are offended.
Yeah. It's not actually like that person specifically that feels offended, but they feel offended
on behalf
of somebody else, which is a little bit interesting because that other person or that other group or that other else couldn't care less. Yeah. In some situations, obviously, I'm generalizing and creating a theoretical example, but. It's very special. It's very special.
It is. And again, I'm comparing it to my childhood, which is probably similar to your childhood, where these things, I mean, it is insane to think about how things have changed in the last, 20 some years. How quickly that pendulum has kind of swung from one side to like the other. Being offended was part of my day. I was offended on a daily basis. But we were 20 kids playing outside, and we were offending each other directly, indirectly, pushing,
throwing rocks at each other.
Everything. That was my whole childhood. Was being offended, learning how to cope with it, offending back sometimes or not or whatever, and it was just this back and forth. And you learn how to cope, and you learn how to, those are the bullies. I gotta avoid them, and then I gotta, And now it's like all of that is just regulated.
Do you think that you're more prepared for life because of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And business and
yes. It builds resilience.
It does.
That's the thing. It builds resilience because you build resilience when you get hit, in general, or fall. And being offended is also a way of falling and being hit. So if you're never offended and you're never being hit, how are you building resilience? If you're always landing on pillows, if everywhere you move, there's a pillow and it's all cozy.
But then you're comfortable just staying
Where's
down.
the resilience? And then there's a tsunami. And then you're dead because you never experienced it. You don't even know how to cope with it. So I think it's important to, I'm not saying seek out the issues and the offenders and the difficulties in life. But when it comes to embrace it and to change your perspective and go, okay, this is an opportunity for me now to grow some cojones or some muscles or whatever you want to call it, some character, and learn to cope with it. It will make you stronger. It will make you a rounder person. I just think it's a good thing, all in all.
I agree. I think that competition, just generally just problem solving, I think. You're presented with a problem. Life is a problem, kind of, right? With many sub problems, and then we need to try to find the best way and navigate through it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I totally agree with you, I think that my childhood obviously was a bit different from yours, from Romania, and I would love to visit one time. I've never been, but I've heard I've heard it's very beautiful.
We can go together. It's also not what it used to be, because I think the globalization and the way and the internet and everything has made more and more of the world a lot more standardized. There are still hidden gems and all of that, but we're going in this direction, right? I think, where everything is more standardized, and yes, you can go to the US, but it's not going to feel that authentic as it did in the 70s or 80s, right? I mean, before, even again, just 20 years ago, you went to Romania, and it was a very different place than Norway. It was a different place.
Yeah.
It was a
like how so?
Like the stores, the vibe, the cars, the radio. It was an immersive experience. Now you go and it's more European. It's not that different. There's Porsches there. There's expensive cars. There's McDonald's everywhere. Prices are a bit more up. More people speak English. It's just getting closer to what you know. So it's not.
But I think that's. Do
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's over the course of quite a long time. Like you said, the 70s. Imagine, in the 70s when you traveled to the US. US was the US. You traveled to
that was an experience.
Japan. That was totally different.
That was like going to Mars.
It's like everything was so far away. And then as immigration and as people navigate around and move around, not only that, but like you said, technology, sort of this uniform internet. Yes, in the 70s, there was still people that were in Italy that aspired to be moved to New York and find their like even before that, the big dream, the big apple, or things like that. Like, but now it's totally different because you have this sort of non-stop, on-demand, 24/7, 365. News cycle that's just giving you everything that is pop culture on this basis, right? It's just, and no matter if you're in Romania or you're in Oslo or you're in Vancouver, it doesn't really matter. It just matters because these algorithms that are presenting this information to us, they of course they see your geographic location, and to a degree will give you that, but for a lot of it is that it just sees what you're interested in, and then it gives you that.
Dude, I remember when I would go back in vacation, because the thing is, I lived in Kristiansand, and I would go back to Romania. I lived by the Black Sea in a city called Constanza, so it was a harbor sea, and I'd go back 2 times a year, and I'd spend a month in the winter and 2 months in the summer. That was my vacation. Because I really missed being in Romania and my friends and everything. And living in Kristiansand was very strange and weird for me. Like, I moved there when I was 15, and it was, those 4 years were tough. Because I just didn't connect with the people and the culture and the vibe and everything. I missed home, And I was playing tennis as well, and there was no tennis culture. I couldn't play tennis. I met friends.
In Kristiansand?
3 tennis courts and 5 guys who play tennis. 5 lawyers. That's it. I didn't have an academy. It was not any of that, which I missed. So, anyways, but when I would go back home, my friends, because I would wear clothes that were not in the stores there, Nike and some of these things were not that prominent, and you had to go to Bucharest to like special stores to find. So everyone was like so curious about what I'm wearing, and I remember the cap, like, because there were so many fake brands in that time. So we made up these stories about how to know when clothes are original. So, for example, the cap needed to have like 12 stripes. I don't know. There was a guy who said that, and then that became the thing. If it has 12 stripes, then it's original. Stuff like that. And then was another guy saying, "No, it's 7 now," or something. Like, it's like a village thing.
Both of these guys are they're making those fake caps with 7 or 12.
I don't know. So I would come from Norway, and I would feel like I would be scanned, because like a friend of mine would be like, can you see that cap? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And they were like, 12. It's got 12 stripes. It's the real one. And I was like, what does he mean? Or whatever. And then, can you show me your shoe? Like, just turn around. I'll show my shoe and like, yeah, if you had the logo under your shoe, then that was original.
Okay.
I don't know, stuff like that.
Really?
So I feel it was like people were scanning me, but because that was very, now it's none of that, because like, who cares now? There's Nike everywhere, there's cars everywhere. So again, that experience of going to, it doesn't matter if it's Romania or any other country, it's getting, you have to go more, I guess, to the outskirts or to some village in Romania or some...
To really experience.
To really get more of that Romanian flavor, smell. You go to Bucharest now and it's... Yeah, but it could be Prague and it could be...
Okay.
It could be Hungary and it could be...
It doesn't... But that's why like some people say, oh yeah, what's the difference between like Canada and the US? And I think it's just like, yeah, there are some differences, but really like the metropolises, like Toronto, Vancouver, Canada.
Skyscrapers, parks.
Skyscrapers, this, with little bit park there, this, that. I mean, yes, they have all their like identities, but the more a place becomes like a multicultural metropolis, is that it loses a little bit that identity.
Exactly.
It becomes more of like, these are the types of places like capital cities where people will be like, well, the flag doesn't really matter as much. Whereas, out in the countryside, they got a big flagpole hanging out like from their house. And I think that people have more of maybe an idea of what it is to be patriotic in the countryside. And it's like the last thing to be sort of modernized as well.
Talking about patriotism and things like that, do you identify as Canadian or Norwegian, or what's your relationship to identifying with a nationality?
I think we had a little chat about this not so long ago, and I think both of us had a little realization, is that over the course of at least my childhood is that I realized that I was a little bit, like you said about the scanning you, looking at your clothes, a little bit like that, is that wasn't quite accepted as being Canadian. But what is being Canadian? There's a little bit of a sort of loose definition of that, but also in Norwegian as well, because I couldn't speak the language as good as I can now. Now, I mean, very little difference between. I mean, you'd have to talk with me for quite some time, like this, to realize that I wasn't. Maybe not an hour, but 10 minutes before you'd hear that little small word or that small way that I say something. But anyways, I think that
I don't know. I notice it more in that you're not really Norwegian, or you haven't lived in Norway your whole life.
With the way that I act,
with the way that you are as a person.
But that's the thing, is that I will never. I can say that I love living in Norway. I love being Norwegian, but I also need to like keep that identity that I have, which is, I think, something when I was a little bit younger, when I came to Norway, that I was thinking like, I need to focus on trying to make sure that I'm Norwegian, and then people will like me or whatever like that. But I think these stories, these things that we have, these experiences, you're flying back from Romania to Norway,
that was weird.
Both cultures.
That was very weird.
Spain, all these things. This builds you as a person and forms your identity. Yeah. And if you try to be something else, you're sort of, you're handicapping yourself.
You're not true to yourself. Yeah.
You're handicapping yourself.
You're handicapping.
Yeah, because you're taking out a very important part of who you are.
Yeah.
So back to that. I mean, I feel like I'm both.
You feel like you're both.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some days I can feel more of one and more of the other. But I would say that when I'm in Norway, I feel more Norwegian.
I certainly feel like a blend. But I also never have. I'm not a big fan of like. I'm not big on like nationality. Like I don't I don't identify as this proud Romanian guy or as this proud Norwegian guy. And I understand there's some people that want to take on that fatherhood of like, you know, I'm Norwegian and like in Norway we don't do this, or you know what I mean? Like there's some people that are very proud and nationalistic about that, and then they derive their sense of worth and being of like being Norwegian. Or I'm not like that. I don't. It's not like I don't care, but like I don't go and I don't present myself as a Romanian or a Norwegian. It's just, you know, honestly, I feel like there's a lot of Romanian stuff in me. At the same time, there's a lot of Romanian stuff that is not in me. A lot. I'm not sure how much or whatever, but it's, you know, I'm like a glass that was just diluted with just a lot of other drinks. And of course, if you measure it in the lab, there's something there, but it's not pure anymore.
No.
You know, it's just. And then obviously, I've taken a lot of Norwegian values and, you know, inside. And again, I've lived in Spain for many years, so that's being in my psyche a little bit. I lived in, you know, for 5 years I went to France to Nice and Côte d'Azur 5 years in a row, every single summer also to learn French and be with. So I also feel there's a lot of, you know, this French thing in me. I love French wine. I love, you know. I studied in the US for 1 year. You know, so whatever. It's like everything influences me. So, I guess it's fine. And I also understand the people that are very Norwegian and they come from, you know, this village in Norway, and that's where they've been their whole life, and their whole body is Norwegian.
That's what it is.
Skiing and with the dish and the names, the heritage, right? I understand that.
The same goes for anywhere you are in the world. I think it's not exclusive to Norway. It's that a lot of these people that live in these small village towns, that's where they've lived. That's where they will live. That's where their kids will live. Maybe their kids will explore and then go to the big city. Now, obviously, it's way easier to travel internationally, but for a lot of people before is that you could sometimes never leave your country, but this is the dilution of some of these national identities. I think is kind of happening generally around the world. Like you said, it starts with the metropolises. It starts with before, you know, your radio was more your radio, and the grocery store was very Romanian, you know. And you found these products, but you never find them anywhere else. There was no Kit Kat, or there was like, you know.
It was a Romanian Kit Kat.
Yeah, it looked like a Kit Kat.
But it had a different name.
It had a different name.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like this.
I miss a little bit those times. Very charming times.
Yeah.
Very village.
I actually think, you know the Swedish Kit Kat?
No.
Sport lunch.
Wow.
You see it at the store next time? I think, I'm going to say it now, it's better than a Kit Kat.
Is it sport lunch?
Sport lunch.
Okay. We'll have a look at that.
Yeah, you gotta.
No, that's fascinating.
So great.
That's good. It's a good. No, that's great, man. I mean, it's good to have had you on board here. I think we've done a couple of hours already.
I think we.
I can talk to you for 2 more hours.
we could definitely.
Maybe we should start a bit slow, and then the next time we can talk about other areas as well. But you're a fascinating guy because we have a lot in common. Not only with the Canadian thing, but also with you know, the way you are. You're extroverted, you're outspoken, and you're a happy guy like me as well. So I always felt like we have this brother connection in a sense.
Exactly.
Always easy to talk to you. Always easy. I know where I have you, and if I'm sometimes in a rush or something, I know I can just listen. I want to talk about this and go right to it, and you can do it with me, and it's very good to have it like that. So I thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And we'll do this again at some point. It was interesting to hear more about how it is for you to work at Ambassaden and what you guys are trying to achieve. Again, I think you guys are doing a great work. The team over there and the people you work with are very very professional and very good people. You have a nice concept there, and we're certainly happy to work with you guys. And
Us too.
did you, by the way, did you notice that we have a cat over here?
We've had a cat there for about 2 hours.
Have you seen it?
I just saw it right now.
I didn't see it. It's Maya.
I didn't.
We threw away
one of the cats, but we got the other one.
We got the other one on the.
But it was nice. It was very, very calm.
She didn't say anything.
She didn't say a single thing.
Mayuchi. I have 2 Bengal cats for the. Look at her. Yeah. Anyways.
But
cool.
no, pleasure. Really.
Was a pleasure. Was a pleasure.
It's always nice to see you. And